Welcome. I'm going to open the meeting for the CPA for August 18th. We're going to go into the agenda, and then we're going to have our annual CPA meeting and preservation plan. So first order of business is approval of the minutes for July 21st, 16. May I have a motion to do so? Motion made.
I'll second.
Ed makes a motion. Jay is the second. Any comment, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Any communication, new communication? Jamie, besides, we had a communication regarding the housing plan, which I'll bring to the members' attention from Jessica Allen when we get to that subject.
Did receive a quarterly reports from the school department for the Center Pepin Playground and for the White Park Middle School project.
You want to tell us anything about them, or just?
Sure. Center Pepin is, they're mostly done with the project. They've ordered the equipment. It's being delivered. They're going to install it once it is delivered. The fence has already been replaced and paid for. The middle school, they bid out and received, they bid out the lights, and they received construction quotes, and I believe it's they're going forward with that now.
When is that project supposed to start? This is the football field lights.
Yeah. It's on schedule. They were looking to begin construction around this time of the year.
Okay. Any questions on those two projects from the members? That's an update. Anything else, Jamie?
That's all I have.
Okay, next up is our annual CPA meeting. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. This is my first time chairing a meeting of this nature, and I'm asking the other members to chime in anytime there's something we want to discuss, questions, or comment on. This draft presentation plan is available on the East Hampton website. There's a lot of detail. We're going to have a little slide presentation and information that we'll comment on and see questions for. First, I would like to introduce our members. I'm Dan Rist. I'm a City Council Finance Subcommittee, and by council rules, I have to be on as a Finance Committee Chairman, I have to be on this committee. The committee decided I was also great to be chair, so that happened too. Vice Chair is Ryan Barry, City Council appointee. Members include John Brunner, Scott Kavanaugh, Andrew Hunter, Greg Rowland, Jay Ryan, Harry Schuman, and Ed Swinicki from the Housing Authority. I should have said Harry Schuman's from the Planning Board, Jay Ryan is from the Conservation Commission, Andrew Hunter's on the Park and Rec Commission. So thank you all for serving. We were all volunteers, and this is an important committee. As you'll see when we start talking about it, there's a lot of money being spent. And one of the things I'm on the committee for the council, and I take very seriously, is keeping a watchdog of taxpayer money. Now, taxpayer money comes from the city CPA fund, but it's often used to leverage millions of dollars from the federal government and from the state. So it's always your tax money, whether it's from the feds or from the state. So as we go through this plan, and there was a handout that duplicates some of what's on the slides, I'll ask comment from the committee or questions or comment from the audience. If you want to make a comment about anything, raise your hand and come to the podium, please. So let's see if I can do this right. Our purpose for the CPA, I'm just going to read them. Study needs, resources, and possibilities for community preservation. Oh, I have to click. Okay. Identify possible future projects and expenditures. In the back of the CPA draft plan, which is detailed, there's a long list of ideas that a lot of the organizations that utilize the CPA have listed as future plans. I'll ask anyone in the audience who represents those organizations if they would like to speak to a future project that hasn't been presented. We'll do that at the end of the meeting. Plan for equitable distribution of CPA funds. Affordable housing, open space protection, recreation facilities, and historic preservation. These are the 4 elements that we are allowed to fund. I often have to say to the city council, when I'm on the city council, when people ask, why are we building a boardwalk when we have roads to repair? Well, we can't use this money for the roads. We can only use it for certain things, and they have to fit into the categories there. And when an application comes before us, that's the first thing that our staff member, Jamie Webb, looks at. Does it fit into the CPA law, and is it allowed to be funded? Comments, questions from the committee? Okay. Next slide. Adopted in 2001, 3% of property tax on land over 100,000. That means if your property is worth 300,000, 200,000 of it is taxed at 3%, and you can see it on your tax document when you get it from the city. This is historic. 3.8 million has come from local CPA surcharge since 2001. That's millions of dollars. 2.7 million from the state match. The state used to match us 100%. What's its level right now? It's like 50, 40?
It goes down every year as more communities
It was
adopt.
supposed to be 100%. In other words, if we got in 500,000, they were supposed to give us 500,000, but that's not been happening. But it is a considerable sum of money. Funded 62.4 million in local preservation projects. That's in 15 years. That's pretty good. 5.3 million directly from CPA funds and 57 million from matching funds. CPA funds are often used to leverage grants that we are able to get from different authorities for housing, for instance, for recreation facilities, etc. There is 1.5 million in the bank right now, which we are obliged to carefully give to approved projects. Project comes before us, we go through it in detail, ask for edits, etc. If we approve the funding, it goes before the city council for final approval. You guys can talk anytime you want, you know. This is interesting for me. This tells us where we've spent a lot of our funding and a percentage of it. I, for one, when I was on the council, always wanted to ask if we could try to balance between the 4 projects. That's not always possible, and I don't want to necessarily personally turn down a project just because I want to balance it. We have spent too much money on open space. Maybe we should spend more on something else. But if a project is reasonable and it's appropriate, we don't deny it. As you can see, we've done a lot for recreation. We've done a lot for recreation. He's over there smiling. It's the Park and Rec director over there. Historic preservation and affordable housing is low, and that's something I personally feel we need to work on. We can do more for affordable housing, and we will. Any comments from the committee on this? Okay. All right. This is how the money has been spent when it's leveraged with other funding. As you can see, the federal government's put in 23.4 million and the state 21 million. Okay? This is each one of the projects. We're going to go into a few of the things we've done. Increase and improve housing options for people with low and moderate incomes, etc. Increase access for low and moderate income households to affordable homeownership. Improve the quality of existing housing stock through housing rehabilitation. And support first-time homebuyers with financial counseling and assistance. Some of that is being discussed tonight, a loan program and a rehabilitation program. It's one of the CPA projects that we are actually discussing tonight. Support developers to create remarkable affordable housing units. That has happened recently.
So these are more ideas, needs, and possibilities than necessarily things that we've already funded.
Well, I was going to do that at the end. I'm sorry?
This list is from the plan of the
Oh,
needs
okay.
and the possibilities.
So this is what we're going to try to,
This is what we're hoping that people would bring to us.
okay. Well, we've done some of it, and some
Right.
of it is what the housing people are going to try and bring to us. Okay, I understand. Historic preservation. As you can see on the right, that's the beautiful City Hall lobby that was recently done over. These are the purpose of historic preservation. Just read all those. Purchase historic preservation restrictions for whole buildings. Preservation and restoration of historic resources, including archival documents, structures, and landscapes. One of the last slides will show that we've taken to try to digitalize some of the important historic records of the City Hall. Open space, there's been a lot of preservation of open space. That's in regional approach has been done. We have been working, for instance, with the Southampton Conservation Commission as well as our own. Is that right? To do the project. Enhance connectivity, improve stewardship, protection of important threatening water. We've also protected a lot of space in town from space that we felt was better protected over the years. On the city council, I remember approving a lot of open space protection from development. Recreation. You can see the boardwalk, parks. One of the things that's happened, which I was very happy to see, is the law changed and allowed the rehabilitation of existing park facility and recreation facility. In the past, before that law changed, you could only build brand new facility. You couldn't fix. I'm stating that correctly, right? You couldn't repair, maintain existing facility. Now you can.
Unless they were bought with CPA money. Yes.
Okay. Enhance and increase recreational opportunities in the city. Maintain, improve. Expand and create new recreational facilities. Linkage between recreational facilities. Okay. Improve signage, mapping, and stewardship of existing trails and parks. Under affordable housing, these are projects that have recently been done, right?
Since the beginning.
Since the beginning. You can read them over. Open space and recreation, we've done a great deal. The most recent was the Whitebrook Middle School football field lighting, which we're doing and helping with that. That's recreational. We helped fund the renovation of, with private, the mills and the, what was that project?
The bike trail.
Which one is it?
The bike path. Manhattan Rail Trail.
Manhattan Rail Trail and the park. Oops, wait a minute, back. I went too fast. You can see under historic preservation, we've done a lot. There's a great deal more that can be done. Comments or questions? Comments from the committee? Nobody else wants to say anything?
You're doing a great job.
Yeah, okay.
Carry on.
So, at this time, I wanted to go to what is listed in appendix at the end of the draft project, which, as I said, the actual preservation plan has a lot of detail with criteria, etc. Appendix B, no, not B. Which appendix is it?
B.
Project priority lists. We have gotten lists from 2014 and some added this year. And there's a lot of them. These are projects that are ongoing Some are up for discussion and have been taken care of. For instance, this, under the Affordable Fair Housing Partnership, CPA to provide down payment assistance to first-time home buyers, that's actually up for discussion and possible vote this evening. So there's a list of a lot of things that can be done. Do any of in the audience would like to speak to a project that they're interested in? Thank you, Jamie, for putting that up. In promoting this evening. What are you doing to me here? Why? Why is my computer shutting down? It's updating. I found this is a great time.
Yeah, of all the times.
Always turn off the
Oh my
automatic updates.
God. Oh well, I'm gonna rely on Jamie now.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, just decided to update right now.
Convenient time.
Yeah. Does any of the people in the audience want to speak to a project that's ongoing? Come on up to the podium. State your name for the record.
I'm Marty Klein, board member of Past Conservation Trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to let you know that yesterday morning we had the final walkthrough with the contractor and the landscape architect. So there's a couple little details left, but with the exception of the interpretive signs, which you're helping with, and what was the other thing? We haven't planted the butterfly gardens yet, but that'll get done in September. Otherwise, it looks beautiful.
Thank you for the report.
It's a great project. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Check.
Hi, my name's Ed Check, and I'm the president of City Space. That is the nonprofit that runs the Old Town Hall. And I'm also here really just to give you an update and also to say thank you for your help in the past. I hope everybody's happy with the renovation of the lobby. We're very proud of it, and we've gotten a lot of compliments from them. The update is now that we have a beautiful lobby and we're in the first floor, we're now moving upstairs, and that's the next phase and the next mission. So this past year, we got a grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Facilities Fund. It was a feasibility and technical assistance grant. It was a match grant for $15,000, so we matched $15,000. City Space did it, so we had $30,000 to hire a architect to tell us what, to do a study of what could happen with the second floor. And so for the past, all of this year, we've been working with Kuhn Riddle Architects from Amherst to do sort of a study of specifically about a lot of the accessibility issues with that space, and bringing it up to code, and also getting an elevator in that building, which is one of the biggest problems. So the second floor would be a multi-use space that would have to be approved by the Massachusetts Historical Commission because it is a historical building. And I want to make sure you understand that what we've done is only a study. There's nothing permanent about it. But it was very interesting working with the architects to find out what costs would be and what it would entail to renovate the entire second floor and put an elevator in. So we are planning to apply for something this year, and we haven't decided what yet because we're still bringing in, there's still information that we're gathering. And one of the reasons why we haven't opened it up to the public yet, because our intention is to show all of these plans and invite the public to come see it and see what it could be, and then to go out with a major capital campaign to do this. But because we're dealing with the Massachusetts Historical Commission, we have to see what we want to do is possible. And so that's where we're at. We have all of our architects' plans. We have now submitted those plans to the Historical Commission. We're waiting to hear back from them. And so that's why we haven't announced anything, because we don't know if in fact we can do that. And just to give you an example of that, the stage upstairs that's on the second floor is an addition. It wasn't part of the original design. So we're asking the commission, can we get rid of that stage? And we don't know if they'll let us do something like that. They may come back and say, no, you have to keep the stage, even though as far as a proscenium stage, it's not a very good stage. Okay, so there's a lot of questions like that. Last semester, we also had an intern work with us from UMass, who was really terrific, and she was a graduate. She graduated, and basically she did a lot of information about structuring a capital campaign and what are all the necessary steps to jump into a project where you're trying to raise millions of dollars. And we've started to look into that organization. So I wanted, again, this is really just an update, and we will come to you with a more detailed application as soon as we hear from the Historical Commission. It's very exciting to see what is possible with the second floor in the Old Town Hall. And again, because it's dead center on Main Street, I think it's going to be an amazing thing for the city if this project can go forward, because it'll bring in a lot of revenue as well.
Just
Yeah.
for the other committee members.
Yeah.
Mr. Check is talking about, because I work with Ed, renovation that would include a performance space, a multi-use space, maybe even kitchen space, etc. So it would be a magnet for the city for events that I think would be wonderful to bring more people into our city. And that's what he's talking about. Do we have any questions? You're going to present this later
Hopefully,
on?
we're going to get the information from the Massachusetts Historical Commission this month, and we're planning hopefully to do something in September for the public and show you all of the plans of what that second floor can be. Okay, so again, this is just really an update.
And you are trying to target grants that might be out there for this kind of work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sure, definitely. There's another, we've already received the 2 basic grants from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and the next one is actually a lot of money, but we're now in line to apply for that because we've already done feasibility studies and maintenance studies, and there's an order, as you approach the MCC, there's a certain order that you have to go through before they'll give you money, especially if it's a lot of money, in $500,000 grant or something like that. So that's it. Okay.
Anybody from the committee? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much. Anybody else want to?
Hi, I'm Beth Tiffany from the Nashwatic Pond Steering Committee.
Okay.
I will apologize to start with because I didn't know till late last night that I was going to be here. So I'm not as prepared as other members that have been in the committee longer. But I do know that we need to maintain the gabion weir and the siltation basin that flow into Nashwatic Pond. Very expensive. We do fundraising, and we've had Florence Saving Bank give us donations for the pond maintenance. These are huge projects that cost a lot of money coming up. I'm not really sure. I think they may have put in an application for the White Brook.
Not yet.
Not yet. All right, they were talking about it. Then they will be. White Brook, gabion weir,
Sedimentation basin.
and the siltation basin, Broad Brook. So I just wanted to mention, well, the pond is important to all of us. These aren't things that people see, but it's really important to keep that siltation out of the pond since we just paid to dredge it. So hopefully you will be seeing an application for that coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll just add, I met with Mike McManus, who's the new city engineer, and he's working with the committee, National Pond Steering Committee, and the DPW to figure out what can be done with DPW and what they would be applying for under CPA.
Okay.
So I just did have a preliminary conversation with him, and his intent is to get that to the committee for the September meetings.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Do you want to say something?
Is there any way you can raise the volume?
Oh.
So we can hear you.
Okay.
It's supposed to be an open meeting. I can't, it's my fault. I'm not blaming anybody, but.
Well, okay. Do you want to repeat what you said, Jamie, in a slightly
No, that's
louder.
okay, you can go on. I don't think- it
No,
wasn't-
I agree, I'll try to do that.
When you talk to somebody else, we don't hear it.
Okay,
At least I don't know how everybody
I
else.
agree, thank you.
All right, I will try to speak up.
Okay. Is there any other comment from the public? Hearing none, we're gonna, I'm sorry.
Please.
I wasn't sure whether you were just talking about ongoing current projects or.
Anything you'd like to talk about, if you want any ideas for the CPA committee or
Any new
feedback.
projects you might thinking of, anything?
This is sort of the annual meeting for us to get feedback from the public as well as thoughts for future projects.
I'm Garrett Stover. I'm a volunteer with Pascomic, and I'll take the blame for planting the seed for the accessible trail that's been.
That's a bad
Yeah.
thing.
Well, yeah. Marty and I have had, I've had to give him a lot of moral support since he took it and ran with it. So, I just wanted on the less infrastructure heavy side of open space. I just wanted to let you know that there's a couple great new board members on Pascomic who are very active in thinking about what the next steps might be for land protection. And as part of their initiative, we've been meeting with, there's a new regional land protection person at Mass Audubon, Jessica Allen, your planner, no one from the trustees. It's been a long day, so but anyway, so like 4 or 5 people from Land Protection, Kestrel Land Trust, a couple of people from their staff. So we've been talking about land protection in East Hampton and several long-standing priorities for protection, and this has been maybe 4 months or so. So we're at the stage where people are talking with landowners and seeing what kinds of possibilities there might be. So we're hopeful that over the next year, one or more of these potential acquisitions will come to fruition, and we'll be able to knock on your door again. And you know, as I said, these are partnership discussions, so there are other organizations involved and other resources and probably better conduits to Boston and the large donors. So knocking on wood, that will be a big part of the cost of these potential acquisitions. So I just want to make sure you're alert that things might be happening.
You guys have your eye on any particular parcels of property right now?
We really can't, not partly because it's a very early stage, but it's also
Negotiating.
yeah, it's a really sensitive thing in these situations.
Understood.
Yeah, it'd be great to wave the flag early on and get people's interest.
Yeah, you don't want to flag your interest.
Yeah.
Price goes up.
Yeah.
Appreciate you sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a question about the handout.
Come on up.
Get my exercise tonight. The pie chart, does that represent the past year, upcoming year?
2005, it's from 2001
So
to
this,
current.
the one on the left side?
So those are the aggregate numbers for every project that the CPA has funded.
Since we've started?
Since the CPA started, yes.
Okay. And the sentence, at the beginning of fiscal year 2017, over 1.5 million was reserved for future CPA grants. So that's for the upcoming year?
That's as of July 1st, there was $1.5 million.
That's what's in the bank.
And does that include the state match or not?
That includes last year's state match. It does not include the matches that we anticipate getting in November.
So in effect, it's 3 million?
No.
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 State match is no longer 100%. Believe me.
What is it now?
And that's an accumulated balance
Actually, no,
also.
it's,
That's,
Right.
that, it's not
It
just,
carries over from
it's
the
not just
past.
this
Yeah.
year's
I
amount,
misspoke.
it's,
This does include the budgeted estimates for this year's match, as well as tax receipts that we expect to get by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
So some of that money is already in the bank, and some of that money is budgeted and will be coming in over the course of the fiscal year.
Yep.
When we receive more money than what we've budgeted, that money won't become available until after the fiscal year ends.
Okay. Thank you.
so effectively 2/3 of that has kind of accumulated and is rolling forward, and another, 1/3 is current for this upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you.
So 1.5 million is what we estimate the budget is, based on an estimated match from the state grant.
Right, and estimated tax revenues that we haven't yet taken.
Estimated tax revenues, but that's the money that we are targeting for projects. Is that correct?
It's not our it's our balance, not our budget.
All right, I'm sorry, I used the wrong term.
Yeah,
Balance,
those
right.
are current balances.
Okay.
The total of our current balances, is that right, Jamie?
It's,
$1.5676 million.
right, but it's a budget. We refer to it as a balance, but it's a budget.
Okay, let's not get into semantics. It's
Okay.
Any
Available
other-
for expenditure.
Yes.
Yes, that's what I was meaning, yes. Any other questions? Thank you. We should talk about account balances as part of this annual meeting. What's in each one? Do we have those, Jamie? I don't think I have them in front of me. The account balances for,
They were in the minutes, but
oh, okay, they're in the minutes.
Are we done with all the comments and questions? from-
I asked it. Is there anybody else? No? Anything? So the account balances, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie. Reserve for open space, 70,000 is still there. That's what we've budgeted in, as we are required to do 10%. Reserve for historic preservation is we budgeted 70, there's 130,000 in there now and $27. Reserve for affordable housing, we've budgeted 70,000, appropriated in 17, there's 8,000 appropriated, and there's $223,812 in that balance. Undesignated is $900,882, and the reserve fund is $251,700 for a grand total of $1,576,421. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but undesignated means that the committee is allowed to use those funds for any project that we deem acceptable. Correct on that, Greg? Okay? So that's the account balances. Thanks. Any other comment from the public? Because we're going to move on to the agenda for projects that are ongoing that are, this will end the annual meeting's public discussion. Thank you very much for attending.
Did you have a question?
Did you have something?
This is a procedural question.
Uh-huh.
Want me up there?
Sure.
Good evening. I'm Barbara LaFlamme. I'm from Southampton. I'm a resident. I'm very interested in the Cook County Road project, which I believe you will be discussing in the next segment. Is that correct?
Is that the conservation area, Whitmore Conservation Area?
No.
So the Cook Road was a project that was aquifer protection, drinking water supply protection.
Speak up.
It's aquifer protection in Southampton. It's like 12-acre property? Or?
It's 25.6 acres, and it was a joint project working Southampton and East Hampton with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to secure funding. Southampton Town Meeting has appropriated and voted unanimously Southampton's portion, which is basically a third. And I would expect that someone should be here representing East Hampton or submitting East Hampton's portion of the project to you. Is tonight the only opportunity to do that?
No.
They haven't approached us about being on the agenda. The topic, I had been continuing it on the agenda, but we removed it until we are given some new information. It's been a few months since we've heard from them.
Okay.
So I believe, knowing what you just said, they may be coming to us, but they usually go through Jamie, our staff member, to get on the agenda and present the project, because we haven't heard from them yet.
Okay, thank you. So there will be an
Know anything
opportunity.
about that, Jay?
I do not know any
Okay,
current.
Jay's from the Conservation Commission, so he doesn't.
There
need-
was, I spoke with, the,
Mark Wormsley?
yes, thank you. I spoke with Mark today, and so his intent was to bring it to the CPA, and he knows the application schedules, and said that it still had to go through town meeting in Southampton.
Southampton, we have done our share. The voters have voted.
Okay.
It was a unanimous vote at annual town meeting, so
When was
now
that?
it's,
Was that in the spring?
it was in May 17th, I want to say.
I'm surprised that I haven't heard from the East Hampton people, so, because if that happened in May, we haven't heard anything, so. We don't act unless we're given information we've requested, so.
I can certainly understand that, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
This is a technical question, just, I didn't wish to see that all opportunities were gone. Thank you.
We welcome to hear about it though, and we have monthly meetings, so we hope that maybe we will hear about it next month.
Okay, we're working with the Kestrel Trust and people in East Hampton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you'll get in touch with Mark, is he gonna present something
so-
soon?
They're working with Jessica, the city planner, will be submitting, and I think the intent is to get that application again for the September meeting. but-
Okay, September, good.
Yeah. So I just,
John, did you have?
I was just going to make sure that everyone understood that there is a monthly meeting that the public is invited to. Just thought we might underline, if there's any doubt or ambiguity about it, that that's specifically what we request, is that if you have a project, that you bring it to us, and then you'll get a worksheet and further instruction. Presumably you go out, gather your information, and come back and make a formal proposal.
So the process, the first step is to see Jamie Webb, our staff member who is very knowledgeable about CPA and knows if the project you're presenting will pass muster with the law. So it's appropriate. And then it gets to us. So she does a good job with that for us. Anything else?
One thing that hasn't been mentioned, but that might be worth mentioning too, just for people who are not familiar with the process, is that we have adopted a quarterly funding cycle that we generally adhere to. So we usually are accepting applications and reviewing projects, and then every third meeting we vote to fund. So, and I think our funding cycle right now is, August, November, February, and May. That doesn't preclude us from deviating from that under exceptional timing circumstances and so forth, but that's the typical cycle for us as a committee. That's just for people who may not be familiar with that.
But you're not final. It has to go from you to the city council?
Yes, that's correct. City council has final approval on all spending of taxpayer money. I get to present my own committee. It's so weird. Anyway.
So we're the door, but it keeps going.
Thank you.
I don't believe that I recall, I've been on the city council since there was a city council, and I've been involved with CPA-funded projects with the council, and I don't think we've ever said no to a project that was approved by the CPA committee. The CPA committee, our members are community members that the community needs, and I, for one, trust their judgment when I was on the council and not on this committee to know that this is a worthy project, we should fund it. So We've had some debate over it, but nothing's ever been not approved. Is there wood around here?
At the city council level.
At the council
We
level.
don't rubber stamp everything at this committee, but.
So, well, we don't rubber stamp it, we discuss it, but this is the main committee, I would say. I mean, if this committee approves it, it goes to the council, but I, for one, take the committee's recommendation very seriously. So, anything else on our end? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kathy Kroll, and I'm not representing any particular group at this point. I just have a procedural question also about how one gets on the committee, on the PCA committee. I know there are terms, but...
Let me say that usually when a committee, any committee in town has an opening, it's posted downstairs, and if it's a council appointment, it goes through Barbara Bombard. If it's a mayoral appointment, it goes through the mayor. So when there is a committee opening for any of our committees in town, the mayor and the council are posting them. We have representation that, for instance, from the city council, the members who have been appointed by the city council, they've applied through Barbara Bombard, our clerk, and there's a posting. If you're interested in committees, any committees, that's the best place to go, because you'll find on the website what committees are available. Our city's website has just been updated. It's beautiful.
It is.
And it does give you a lot of information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just add that for the CPA committee, specifically, because there are required appointments from the Planning Board, Historic Commission, Housing Authority,
Thank you.
Conservation Commission, and
Planning Board? You said?
Planning Board, you have to be a member of one of those boards in order to be the representative of that board. Additionally, the mayor has a representative and the city council has a representative that you don't have to be, so you don't have to be one of the city council, or two of the city council appointees are not members of the council, and the mayor's representative is obviously not the mayor. So.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm on the committee only because I'm the finance committee chair. That's how I got here. If anybody wants to know. Okay, anything else? All right, so we've talked about the finances. So we're going to go on to our hearings and review of applications. You're welcome to stay. We're going to start with East Hampton Affordable Fair Housing Partnership. We've had ongoing discussion. You guys want to come forward with anything new that you have for us? Members of the committee, it's my intention, as this is a funding cycle date, I'd like to vote on this evening if it's ready in your minds, if there's enough. We received from Jamie the worksheet which shows the project. You guys get that?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to tell the committee, I don't know, this was directed to you, I think, from Jessica?
Yes.
There was that's the worksheet. There was a question, I don't remember which member brought it up, I didn't read the minutes, about how the loan program and this program would be managed. Jessica Allen did some studying on it, and she says that an FTHB program was managed under 2008 Community Development Block Grant. In 2008, the city provided a $15,000 subsidy at a 15-year deferred payment loan. This is how she's setting the precedent of how it was managed back then. And a $4,000 grant for closing costs. Valley was the subcontractor hired by the city to manage the program. The DPL agreement was the contract and signed by the city, Valley, CDC, and the homeowner. Within that agreement was a recapture schedule for if the property was sold before the loan was forgiven. Under this program, the city planning department would be responsible for overseeing and monitoring the subcontractor, filing financial paperwork, coordinating legal review, and other administrative duties as needed related to the project. I would request that funding should be made available to cover the city solicitor's time to review contracts, etc. So she's indicating that there is precedent for this kind of a program and that the city is involved in managing it, which was a question I wanted. I wanted to make sure the city was involved.
And a party to the loans.
Yes, they sign it, according to her. And that's what we would set up now, correct?
I think, right, that was, right. We would do it the same way. Or that's her recommendation.
Right.
Is that in the worksheet? I think it is, right?
And the legal review and resources for that come from the city outside of this budget? Or is this?
I think it would come from the contingency that we built into the budget.
I think we talked about that, yeah, didn't we? That legal fees
I
would
wasn't
come out.
sure. I just noticed there wasn't anything for legal on the actual proposal, so. I guess that answers it. The contingency is actually more than, yeah, it's built in.
Yeah, it's 10% of the budget on the housing rehab program. So we have the worksheet. You've gotten the worksheet? You agree with all the restriction and conditions that are set forth by the committee? Does the committee have any comment or question on these? They're also being projected. Greg?
So who, it's the planning department who will be involved with this?
So
Do they have anything to say as far as taking on the management and administration of this project? I mean, have we heard anything from the planning department?
Yeah, Jessica Helen was at the meeting last month.
She's in favor of the project as far as I know,
Yes,
right?
so she's the city planner. She's also on the housing partnership, has been involved in this project from before it was brought to the housing partnership as an idea. So she is definitely in favor of the project and is aware of what the what it would take to manage the project from the city's level and has the resources available to her to do so.
Okay.
I guess when she sent that email to the housing partnership, she was indicating that she would want the planning department involved.
And have the capacity to oversee it effectively. I think that's important, essentially.
She indicated to me, which I found interesting, that all of the projects that are come under her, like the CPA projects, the large ones that we have funded through the planning department, they oversee the project from day one. So this would just be another project because it's appropriate for that department to do so. That's what I think that she said to me. For instance, the mill project at Manhattan Rail Trail was millions of dollars. They were the funding. The planning department was the oversight on that whole thing. Right? Okay. Any other questions of the committee of the Housing Authority? Anything on the worksheet? So the motion will be to approve $192,500. That the conditions of the worksheet will be agreed to by the housing partnership, and the budget as stated will be adhered to.
Are you looking for a motion?
I'm just reading this over to make sure there's no questions I don't have, but I think it's all set. Yes, could I have a motion then?
I'll make a motion. I'll second it.
Make some detail on
Yeah,
that. The motion before us is to approve the funding of $192,500 for the Affordable Fair Housing Partnership with the agreed upon conditions, stipulations, and restrictions as stated in the project funding worksheet for East Hampton first-timer homebuyer and housing rehabilitation. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Just one.
Abstention. Okay. The motion carries 8-1. It will go before the city council. I don't know. Can we get it on the agenda for this next meeting?
Oh.
Is it too late?
think
Does it need to go to the finance committee?
Yes, that's why I'm trying to get it. It has to get to the council, then it's sent to the finance committee.
Oh.
Once it goes to the council, I can send it to the finance committee, and then I can set a public hearing. We may not get it in time. It has to go through the mayor's office. There's some procedure for the first meeting in September, but Jamie will do her best. If it comes before in September, the public hearing would be the second meeting in September, which is one you should attend. But we'll let you know. Okay? Thank you. Okay, next up is the presentation by the Park.
Can I ask a question to Ryan? In our last meeting, you had some same concerns about whether certain things were legal. Did you find out anything new about that, or?
You know, I think that the loans for rehab is a very close question.
Okay.
I think that if we were just funding the rehab directly, that would be clearly not permissible. There's that section of the statute that says you can spend money for the support of community housing, and support is defined as you know, loans, grants, down payment assistance, etc., for the purpose of making housing affordable. I think is how the statute goes. If I have it with me, but so I think that, you know, the down payment assistance portion of this is clearly allowable, and I think it's a great idea. It's only the renovation
portion of
and
it.
So, you know, it's basically whether a loan for renovation counts under the renovation, which would be non-allowable, or counts under support, which would be. And I think that, you know, that language in the statute that says you can do loans and down payment assistance, et cetera, for the purpose of making housing affordable would indicate that it's more towards the acquisition side of things than the renovation side of things. That's how I come down on it, but I think there's room for disagreement on that.
Just trying to understand better. So thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. And I do agree that the language, I'm reading the 44B right here, the language has some ambiguity in it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I feel is the word preservation gives me my own feeling that we can't interpret the language to allow for renovation to preserve affordable housing. And what I've come to learn is two things. I think I've stated this before. We've had precedents to have this done before without any procedural or comment from the state saying we shouldn't have done it.
And there's other communities.
Other communities are doing it, so that's precedence. Secondly, from what I understand, the state has given a lot of deference to local committees to interpret the language and to decide if a project fits within the scope of the law and can be interpreted to be used, the money can be used for this project. And lastly, I'm going to say, the intent of the law is to preserve affordable housing, and what they're asking for does that. So whether it fits into, this is just my own feeling, whether it fits into the actual scope of the language, to me, it's the intent is there with this project. The intent is to help with affordable housing. It's not like we're spending money frivolously, in other words. I think that it's quite clear that of what the project's goals were. And this is all discussion after the vote, so it's okay. It's good, though. I think the committee, and I thank Ryan, because I think it's important that we have these discussions, because we want to make sure we're not doing something wrong, but I think from my point of view, the precedent indicates that we're okay. Moving on.
It's worthwhile discussion, and I kind of
I agree.
wish that we'd had the conversation a little bit before the vote. If we're going to have the conversation, I think it's useful to, you know.
We had this conversation at the last meeting.
Yeah, we had the conversation at the last
No,
meeting.
no, absolutely. But if there was,
I didn't want to
I had forgotten about it until Jay, you know, and Jay
I was
brought
just
it up.
curious if you'd come up with anything else that, you know, defined it better or clarified. That's
Nothing
all.
definitive, and
Yeah,
I think that Dan's right in that, you know, given the ambiguity in the language, they'll probably get some deference from the state, but I just don't read it that way.
No problem.
Okay,
Not a
that's
problem.
fine. So, moving on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You want to come forward, Mr. Park and Rec Director, sir? John, tell us what you're looking for. The process would be for you to present it this evening. Committee members will have this, hopefully have questions for you. And then next meeting, we hope to present it. I wanted to tell the committee, and I think John's going to go into this, that I've been talking with Jamie. This may not fit in our funding cycle because he's leveraging grants that have a time problem with them, a timing problem. And am I correct in that this needs to be voted on before?
The end of the year. December 31st.
Oh, well, that
This-
gives us time.
Next
Yeah.
funding cycle.
So the next funding cycle will work
November.
then? Okay.
Yeah,
we're
it's-
good.
You need the
it's-
city council vote by then.
I need the city council language. Yeah, there's tie-ins between making sure when you get into a park grant, the city, it's a reimbursement grant, so the city has to say, we're going to, upfront it, and then we'll get the reimbursement from the state.
So
there's
city
language.
council approval has to happen before December 31st?
Yes.
Because that's the last approval?
Yeah, so I will be coming in the second meeting in September for city council.
Well,
to
but
kind of get that.
why don't you
going.
present your project then?
So I'll present it to you guys first here, and we're getting the ball rolling. This is a park grant for $460,000 with a CPA seeking $130,000, and the state would be $322,000. We're looking to redo the park entrance in front for those that frequent the park. It's a traffic nightmare crossing to come in and leave, and as you cross, you have to cross paths to enter the park and leave the park. We are also looking to expand the playground up there and add some handicap accessible features, and then update the stone building bathrooms located at Daly Field are currently closed. They're in disrepair. So we're looking to rehab those bathrooms. Originally, when we looked at doing this years ago, fireworks were still going on. There was a lot of big events on Daly Field. And so we kept the same amount of fixtures. Since then, we've reduced the number of fixtures that we'd like to have inside that bathroom. So originally, we were looking at a much larger sum to rehab that project, but we brought it down. We've cut costs, and we still think it's perfect for the park setting. Maybe we still might have an event once a year that people have to wait to use the restroom, but to spend an extra $75,000, $100,000 for one event is just not worth it. It's just, let's do what it takes to get it rehabbed in a sensible way and make sure it's handicap accessible. And so that's why we've reduced the total cost from years ago. The timing on this is, like Dan said, we need a vote from the city council by the end of the year. The state needs something on the language in the minutes that said, the city will fund it. We don't hear back from the state until after the first of the year, regardless. And then the project can't start until, next July. So we're basically almost a year out before the project can even start.
I just wanted to ask, because I wanted to add, the park grant, is that something that you're confident you're going to get?
The park
Or
grant,
is
that's what funded the boardwalk project.
Okay.
That was a 70-30. The park grant is what we did the playground. That was 100% state grant, so that we didn't have to use
But
any.
you're confident you're going to get it again?
I feel confident. Yes, I do feel confident we're going to get
Okay.
it. But
if you don't, you don't get our money, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we don't get to pocket it if we don't get the grant,
Okay.
based on the grant. So yeah, even though if CPA does say yes, we'd like to fund this project, and in January hear from the state and their numbers didn't match for what they anticipated for revenues, and they say, we're not doing it, then it's off the table, and we go back in the following year. Any questions so far?
It looks like a great what I love, and I think the committee will agree with me, is it's leveraging another grant. So it's always good when this money can be used in combination with another grant to get something done. If the grant, let's say they don't give you the full amount of the grant, but give you half, I would think you'd come back and at least do some of the project, or not?
Yes, we would definitely we would do as much as we could with whatever funding we have.
Okay.
Historically, they're pretty good about doing the 70% if they're going to fund a project, because they know you go through all the legwork of, announcing that it's going to be 70%, and you're looking to get the 30%. So if they're gonna fund it, I'm not positive, but there's a likelihood that it's going to be at the 70%.
The bathroom, can you just tell me what's keeping it, or what's kept it closed? I'm not familiar with the condition or the infrastructure problems that are.
There's some pictures in there.
It got closed for a reason, right?
Infestation of rodents, crack pipes. It's a very old facility. It's.
There's pictures at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, it's.
I was there when I was in Little League.
Yeah.
Harry was there
It's in
when it was
disrepair.
built.
It's just, it's just too much with our budget restraints to try to keep replacing pipes and blowing through the floor, and it needs a full rehab to get it up. Right now we have.
So you really have to go in and dig out the old pipes and.
You have to go under the floor. Yeah, all the piping's under the floor. Our park foreman's been under there, and the floor has to be completely taken out. The pipes have to be redone underneath. That's why we talked about is lowering the scope. Maybe just one sink, two toilets on either side. And we're actually talking about, because there is so much space in there, is to maybe add storage space within that, so we have storage for things in the park as well to utilize that building on top of just using it for bathrooms.
How confident are you in the budget you presented? Are these just ballpark guesstimates, or are there something somebody's done for you that's pretty accurate?
Bill Cannon did.
Bill Cannon, okay.
2010, he did numbers. When I first got here in 2010, I met with Stuart regarding this project. So it has been on our radar for 6-7 years. So we got numbers. Bill did, he did the design. He gave numbers. Those numbers we've amplified. I've talked to Joe Pep. I've talked, and then my park foreman George as well. So we've kind of, in building the playground a year and a half ago, I got a good sense of what it costs for playground equipment on that. And then we've done some road projects in the cemetery. So I've got some good ideas of what it costs for square footage for asphalt and paving as well. So we're hoping we're good on the numbers. We think we are, but you never know what you run into when you're looking at a building that's 60, 70, 80 years old, whatever it is at this point.
You might want to consider, the committee's going to love this word, a contingency in there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
A project that, you can't tell until you get in there that you have to.
Yeah, George is good. Like I said, George went underneath the floor. He has a pretty he has a pretty good idea of. He's been digging around in there, and he's been with the park for almost 30 years now, so he has a grasp of what the situation lies underneath and thereabouts.
Any other questions from the committee? Go ahead.
Two questions. One, just curious, if just kind of the general breakdown of what, how much of the project is here and how much is the bathroom?
The bathroom we've cut down to probably around 100,000, 125,000.
Got it.
Playground equipment, especially ADA accessible playground equipment, is very expensive. A good chunk is going to be spent, and then paving and pathways in the entrance, reconstructing that whole entrance. It's like redoing an intersection for a roadway.
Can you talk more about that? Actually, I'm just looking at the picture. I'd love to kind of hear more.
Yeah, so
the thought behind it. Looks really cool.
So the exit would actually reverse the exit. So instead of taking a left and going down towards the stone building, going out that way, when you leave the park, you'd actually go right and come down into Williston Ave and come back this way. So the exit, so they would stay on that side. So when you're entering, there'd be an island, so you're not crossing. We have a good flow, and then we'd put the toll booth down into the park just before the maintenance road. So they would be there. It would help alleviate, we figured it'd be about 8 to 10 cars off of the road. If you've been for opening day of Little League or a big event with the toll booth, you could be, down on the Williston Ave by the cemetery waiting to get in. So we think bringing that down a little bit further for those that might be just going straight through for flow of traffic, it'd help with that. So, and the toll booth's been hit a few times in its current location. So, thank God no one was in it when it happened, but we've had some school buses take it out, and so there's some damage.
So a person leaving the park could go.
Would be going
could
right.
Turn right on.
It's going to go Lowndes.
You can't go. You're not going to allow going the other way.
We're not going to allow. No.
Going by your office.
No.
That left turn is not going to exist.
It's going to be. That's our preliminary. But I have talked to Joe Pitt from DPW about sitting down with him and the city engineer and making sure this works. They know traffic flow much better, and they understand the logistics. Sitting down with them and say, maybe you should think about designing it this way, or X, Y, Z. So that's that would be part of it. But this was a preliminary of what we'd like to see.
If someone wanted to go that way to attend a ball game,
they could still go
Go
straight.
to the basketball court. You
Yep.
can still go.
You
straight
can still go
through.
straight. Yeah. So if you had to go to the office first, you can still go to the office. Yeah. So.
So what's going to, I guess I misunderstand the map. What's going to prevent them from turning left if they're coming out of the park?
There's an
lower
island.
part.
There's going to be an island. So when they're coming out of the park, they're going to go to the right. So there's a map.
I'm seeing the map, but I'm not sure.
So if you're coming down Lowndes Ave, you're going to be taking a left. You won't interfere with the traffic because the traffic is going to be exiting to the right, or you can stay straight onto Daly Field and head towards
I guess
the office.
I see it now. Okay.
There'll be like, as you're leaving the park, there'll be a like no left turn kind of sign.
Yeah,
is
like
that
we
what you're
have
saying?
now,
So it'll
yeah,
be
you
like,
know, like no right turn, but they
legally,
bang right,
they
yeah.
cannot turn left
Yeah.
at that location.
And that's why actually putting an island in there, they would have to jump the curb or whatever. Because right now, people do go left, right. They peek around the toll booth and go.
Can you expand on the problem with people turning left right now? I'm assuming there is one, otherwise the design.
Yeah,
wouldn't be.
because if you're turning left to enter the park, you have to cross paths to enter.
Not entering the park and departing. The reason
departing.
In order to enter, they'd be turning left. in front of
Departing,
you.
the toll booth's set there, so you actually have an obstruction in the middle of the road on Lowndes Ave that that takes away that lane. So you have to actually go into the other lane to exit out of the park that way.
I'm going to play with my laser beam here. Is this the direction going down to the park?
No.
So I'm misunderstanding this map.
Yeah, you're going down to the park straight ahead.
You know where the basketball courts are?
This is going down to the park.
That's going down to the park, yeah.
Okay.
This is the existing playground here.
Okay.
The two parking spots we were talking about, we're adding for handicap
Now I
accessibility around
understand.
Lowndes Ave here. We do a little clearing there, and then we'd add there's space to add onto that playground in this area here.
Where's the current toll booth? Just
The current toll booth is right here.
Oh, I got
So
you.
there's the,
Oh,
there would be the
okay,
road
that helps
line,
me a
so
lot.
the current toll booth is in this lane here.
The dotted lines kind of signify what the existing
Is that
layout
this line here?
Yeah, and then on
okay.
the other side, you see basically.
Good. Now I get it. Okay. Used to be a surveyor. You'd think I'd understand maps.
But you don't want anybody to be able to come out and come here, right?
Yeah, exactly. We want traffic to go.
Because you don't want them crossing.
To cross the pass. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oops.
So the people who live on one side, like Park Avenue and all those houses over there who just want to kind of cut through to their home, they're going to take Garfield instead?
Yeah, just like the ones that live on Williston would have to go out to the stone and go around. So the ones on this side have been inconvenienced for years, and none of the ones on the other side. So it's half dozen of one.
Okay.
6 of the other.
So I'm just not sure how I understand how this is going to alleviate congestion when you have a big event like the Little League. They're still going to have to go through that gate there. That's where you're collecting
Yeah,
tolls, right?
but you're going to go down into the park.
You're off the road a little bit.
You're off the road. 6 to 8 cars off of the road.
6 to 8
here.
cars. I got
So
you.
if you're
Okay.
coming straight through, you'd have a traffic, so if there's, say the first 12 cars coming into the park, 4 want to go straight ahead, and it helps it a little bit to get.
Yeah, that helps a little bit. I got
Not
you.
to mention
And
somebody's
just
trying
in
to leave.
regular weekend activity, we usually don't have more than 4 or 6 cars waiting, so they'd be already in
they wouldn't be in the way of people wanting to get.
Wanted to go straight across, yes.
I like it because at the end of a big event, people aren't going right where they're having maybe late day softball games, lots of people, kids running, and they're going right through the old way to get out of the park, and this is much better.
Yes, right now would be a prime example of the congestion and the traffic flow of going every which way as they exit the park. It's a nightly occurrence.
I just had a question, going back to the bathrooms. I'm assuming you looked into this, but because the old structure is concrete and boulder, did you look into the possibility of using that for something different and building a new bathroom? I assume that was more.
That has a lot of historical.
Right, that's my interest, would be
Yeah.
preserving it as a building, but the change of function, I just wonder, because you're gonna have to tear up the floor, you're gonna have to do a lot of work. Would it be cheaper, or was it looked into the possibility of making the restroom a new construction and repurposing this building?
It would become a space issue. And the last time, I have to look up the numbers, the last time they built a bathroom in the park was bathroom 2, and I believe it was well over 100,000 for that
Well,
bathroom
that's
there.
what I would assume, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to check, since sometimes a new construction with the new materials for plumbing and stuff, flexible pipes and things like that, just wanted to check that it wasn't cheaper.
Yeah, and then the other thing is if the building wasn't a bathroom, what would it be?
Well, you mentioned this.
Yeah, stone building storage, which we think we could still because there's a second floor. That used to be the Park and Rec office 50 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So the second floor up there, which is quite full of storage and stuff that needs to be thrown in a dumpster if we do this project, would be, we'd take all that stuff out and look to add storage up there as well.
Well, I tend to agree. The exterior is very historic, it looks
Yeah, it's
like
the same,
still in good
same as the
shape.
cemetery building that they
It's
built.
still in good shape, pretty much.
It's in real good shape, yeah, just the windows have to be done and the doors have to be, but the structure of itself is solid.
Okay.
Solid.
I personally, I like that it's still functional. I wouldn't want it to be just a storage building.
Well, again, I'm just
Well, it could be anything really. I mean, it could be a snack shack. It could be
Oh, there you go.
other
Yeah.
possibilities for the building that could maintain the building. And I mean, I think the question is just a question: have you, if we were starting from scratch, is that the right placement for a set of bathrooms in that part of the park? And
and knowing that because it's historic and we want to preserve it, if you run into a situation where a pipe runs under a wall, are you creating more problems than solutions? That's my question, basically. So just trying to keep an open mind about the possibility that needing accessibility. I know the doors on the historic buildings are sometimes too small to accommodate a modern electric scooter or wheelchair.
Are they ADA compatible right now?
The doors,
That's important, I think.
the
Don't we have to make them ADA compliant?
Yes.
I'm looking at a door image
Yeah,
here.
which
It looks
is
pretty well.
less than the 34-inch, I believe,
30
requirement.
Yeah, 36.
So,
Is it? Oh, you don't know. huh?
I don't know. We'd have to make it accessible. The door was accessible as part of the project.
So again, I guess
Yeah.
if it hasn't been looked into, I might just suggest verifying. Again, my assumption is that when you have an existing structure that it's probably cheaper, but just putting it out there.
I encourage you to check ADA compatibility with this renovation.
Yeah,
Even if you're not obliged to do so, I guess it goes into historic, tearing the door up.
Yeah.
It still seems to be appropriate to make it, I mean, the
That
only
is
thing
our
to
goal,
do
to
is
make it
widen
an
the door
ADA accessible,
and make
yeah.
an ADA stall in there, so.
Yeah, that is our goal, to make sure it's ADA accessible, so.
All right, okay. Is the committee asking, or John, are you asking for a budget for this?
Well, I was
To look
mostly
at it, or-
just asking, had you done that comparison? And if you haven't, then yes, I would recommend it.
Yeah,
If it's not too much trouble using the precedents of having built recently other bathrooms, if you'd look
Yeah,
into
yeah.
where you would place it and then what could this building be, I wouldn't want it, I like the notion of maybe something else that's functional, not just a storage building. But that's something to bring up with your commission, I think, and with, it's a worthy thought, I think.
yeah, just location of a new construction.
And it may
up
be
there would
cost prohibitive.
But
so.
I'll definitely look into it to get the cost estimates.
Any other comments, questions? Jim? Yeah, Scott, go ahead.
Can you talk about a little bit about bicycle and pedestrian access, like and how this would change, like the sort of bicycle and pedestrian traffic flow with this new entrance? Or if that's been thought, I guess, even backing up, I guess, like, has that been thought about? And if not, I'd love that to be kind of, something.
Yeah, you can see the sidewalks leaving the parking lot. There's a sidewalk that runs along between the basketball court and the new entrance, and then it connects in.
And then is there a crosswalk there to the sidewalk on the other side? Is that what
yeah, exactly. And then there's a sidewalk that goes down to the park.
And there would be a curb cut.
Yeah, right through there is where then it feeds down, and then it would go across right there. Yeah, and then and then it shoots across, and that on the other side is a sidewalk that goes through
on the left.
On the left-hand side. Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
And then
Having fun with my pointer, and you turn off the projector.
I don't know what the settings.
And then the other thought I had is with bicycle access, because I know a lot of people bike into the park, really going counter to the flow now of the one-way traffic. But I think part of that is because of the connection between the bike path potentially. Like it seems like when I live in in the neighborhood there, and when I see bikes going into the park, it seems like they're coming from from that side and going up and then going back out that way. And I think part of that is connecting to the bike path, which is I think actually a good, kind of in our plan, like talking about create safe connections with the recreational places we have. So one concern I have in looking at this is if we were to ever create a more formal connection between the bike path and the park, that this might prohibit there being an easy way to put bicycle infrastructure to accommodate that.
Well, the best way for bicycle infrastructure would be going out. It would be the opposite way. It'd be on the stone building exit side. That's the closest connection, just straight down out of the park. Behind whatever the building is. That's what I take to get onto the bike trail. As soon as you leave the park, just go straight, and that connects right into the
totally.
bike.
And so, and I also, I guess what I'm saying is I see bikes go into the park that way.
Yeah.
And so then they go in on the road, which is
that's the way they
which is
usually come in,
counterflow.
yep.
But I think that there could be an opportunity there at some point. Something I've thought about is that there could be an opportunity to have a more formal connection between the Manhattan Bike Trail and the park, because they're really they're two recreational gems in the city, right? Like and right now there seems to be kind of an informal connection. What I wouldn't want is to build something that would sort of prohibit at some point a more formal connection. And this, because it's all going out the other way now, like if there be any bike connection to be able to bike from there out that way and back. In the design, I know you said this preliminary design, and so I guess that's just something I'd like to put on the radar.
Yep.
Don't they come this way now, Scott? Like they come in from the stone building, so they'd
Yes,
be
they
going
usually do.
opposite
Yeah.
traffic flow. But
Right.
that's not such a bad thing if you create a bike lane.
Well, that's a thought I had. I mean, these are actually I talked to Jamie about this. Those thoughts I've had just kind of in general, and it's very early on that that this is the first time I brought that up in this form. I just wouldn't want there to be something that would make that more difficult, because I think that could be a really cool opportunity.
But they had a bike lane, just thinking about it, that came this way and then connected here.
Right.
Or even a bike lane that somehow connected to the backside of the tennis courts
There you go.
And use that
And
maintenance
using
road
this
along.
That's what
Maintenance
most of them do. They use the
maintenance
maintenance road is,
And
a
that-
lot of
that
bikes
could be
will
it
come right
too.
by the office and they go back through that way and then down into the park.
Interesting.
That way they stay off of the traffic coming at them that way.
But with this plan, there'd be less traffic coming at them, at least exiting the park.
Yes.
There might be flow-through traffic, which would be limited. It wouldn't be that many, unless they were going to a ball game that existed on Daly Field or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that's a good thing. Cool. Something to discuss, the bike path, future. And I think it's important, because as you build new infrastructure, you got to think about what might happen in the near future if we want to create more bike accessible access to our parks.
And that's one of the things we're trying to do, especially with this project, is improve existing infrastructure instead of ignoring it and having it to go into disarray. So that's why we feel this is important as well, to take our existing infrastructure and improve on what we have. Because if, you know, like the stone building, you know, it sits idle, and it's been a year and a half, you know, that it sits idle.
The last question I have on this is, would most of the old playground equipment that's there be taken out?
No,
Like
it's only a few things would.
like the
few
lion
things-
and the seal. And
a
I
few
have two
things would be
kids that are
taken
little.
out.
We go there all the time. I'm
Yeah,
just
a few
curious.
things would be taken out, but not much. It's to add on to, not disrupt what's there, just add on more on that backside.
Got it. Okay.
Anything else from the committee? I think it's a great project.
Yeah, like I said, this was 2010 when we first looked at this. Stuart actually submitted it
And
as
you
a
said,
state grant.
The numbers are updated, though. You're pretty confident that
Yeah, we.
their 2016 numbers are good.
Yeah, we feel
All right.
we're pretty good on those numbers.
From my point of view, we could do up a worksheet for the next meeting. And if you can bring back to us, from hearing the committee, something on, showing what a new building would be if we could do it, if it's out of the question financially, whatever. Maybe something on the bike access,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, I'll get it to Jamie, so it's part of the agenda, so you have it before the next
Okay,
meeting, so
good.
you have it ready to discuss.
Wanted to discuss with the committee, I know we have a funding cycle. I'm concerned if we vote on this in November, given city council procedures, that we get it done in time. And I know Jamie and I were having discussions about that. One of the reasons I think the funding cycle was developed by the committees in the past is because if we had competing large dollar amount projects, we wanted to make sure that we decided in a funding cycle what would be a priority, because that could really kill the budget if you did that. But some of these projects have, leveraging grants have time situations. I'd like the committee to consider voting on this prior to November. So I'll bring that up at the next meeting. I just want you to put it in your heads to think about, because I don't want a project that has a grant possibility losing its deadline. I doubt the city council will delay it for any reason, but you never know what's going on.
I agree. It'd be nice to have a little buffer on that,
Yeah, a
little wiggle room on that.
Right, so I wouldn't mind voting on it at the latest at the October meeting, because if we get everything back from John and we're all happy with it, maybe we vote on it at the next meeting. But if we don't, at least the October meeting, I'd like to vote on it.
Not a problem.
Okay. Anything else?
Lastly, I just want to actually commend you guys for putting together the community presentation plan. I read it today, and it's well done, and it outlines the goals and objectives. So I think you guys did a great job.
We need to point at Ms.
Jamie
Webb
did a
here,
great
who's
job.
done a fantastic job.
Jamie did a great job with it. It really is. It's well presented.
Can I ask him a question?
Harry, you're welcome to ask
Harry,
me a
I'm on the
question.
hot seat, so you got it.
Well, this has got nothing to do with this. Okay.
Oh, okay, well, maybe we'll let you have it.
I was at a hardball game a couple of months ago, and it seemed every time somebody would foul a ball off, the thing would go into the crowd, either in behind behind the backstop or to the side. I'm surprised somebody hasn't got hit. Is there any way you can put make a request for some cash and put a bigger overhead thing that would protect the
Backstop?
crowd from
extend the
getting hit by a
backstops,
foul
yeah.
ball? Is that possible?
Which field were you at?
The main hardball diamond up there.
Daly Field?
Yeah. I mean, every time somebody falls a ball off, it goes, you know, left, right, or whatever, and it's always in the crowd.
Is that a high school game there? Is that the high school?
I'm surprised somebody hasn't got, really got hurt up there.
I thought they were all the
Yeah,
way
no.
down in the park, the high school game.
No, the high school, the varsity plays up on top on Daly
Oh, they
Field
do
now.
now.
Yeah, they've gotten better attendance since they moved up top. They like playing up
Right,
on
is that
top.
something that's possible? Putting a screen up there of some kind, or whatever, to protect the crowd?
I can look into it and see what the pricing is and.
I mean, it may be a normal thing, I mean, it happens everywhere, but I'm just sitting here watching this, I'm going surprised somebody hasn't got hurt up there. The people are sitting on the sides and launch chairs and stuff, and these balls are just dropping all over the place.
Okay. Anything else for the Park and Rec Director while I was on the hot seat? Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your
very
time.
much.
Thanks.
We have the pedestrian bridge, we have the conservation area, and as I've said, they're still on the agenda, but unless they bring us something, I'm not gonna bother with it. And I'm ready to remove these items unless the committee feels we just hold them, because we took the Cook County one off because we haven't heard anything, so.
Yeah, so
Cook Road, what is that, Cook Road?
the pedestrian bridge, there, we met with, or Jessica met with a couple of the people from Southampton that are working on it, the Conservation Commission, and there's been some hiccups, but it's still planning to go forward, and they're
No, we'll keep
still
it
trying
here.
to get the more accurate numbers for the committee.
I guess what I'm gonna ask you is to investigate these projects to see when they might be coming to us. If it's gonna be like a few months, then I don't wanna keep thinking about it unless we have to. You know, just to find out when they think they're gonna bring back to us the information we needed or that they were gonna provide. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I can take it off. And
No,
it just, and
what does the
then-
committee feel? I mean,
Well, I assumed that somebody would be here when I saw it on the agenda, and,
So there's- Yeah.
and nobody's here. So I think that's what you're talking about is
Yeah.
if you know, when I'm looking at this as a discussion point without somebody representing the project,
I think
it's hard to
good
kind of move it forward unless we're at a point where we're ready to make a decision and fund it, which I don't think we're at.
So I think what I would prefer as chair, and I think I'm hearing it from the committee too, is to only keep projects that actually have representation on here. And if there, maybe we need another subject heading, ongoing projects that aren't gonna be up for discussion. Okay, so the hearings review would be projects in which those projects have representation. So another one, maybe take this last sentence, continued, and put it at the bottom, continued projects. So we have it on our radar, we know it might be coming forward, but it's not gonna be discussed. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Just for clarification, Jamie, was it your understanding somebody was as part of that, or?
I don't know, because they've already submitted, their application was not rejected by the committee. It's sort of just on hold. So if they showed up today with 10 copies of things with a new budget and the committee wanted to discuss it and it wasn't on the agenda, we wouldn't be able to discuss it.
Well, here's the thing then, we need to contact them and say that they need to go to you first if they're gonna come back. Because I don't wanna be surprised by something. And if they have new information, it's gotta be distributed to the committee, digitally or whatever, okay? So they need to come to you first, in other words. Someone can always come and discuss something, but it won't be reviewed by us unless we have the information in front of us, correct?
Okay, so I'll remove it from the agenda unless I hear
Put it
back.
at the bottom or.
Unless I hear from them that they're planning to come. And then at that point, we'll know in advance and we'll put it on the agenda and do something here.
All I'm asking is you move the word continue to the bottom of the page so we know that those projects are still out there. That we haven't rejected the application. The application is pending more information. But they don't get up to the hearing section unless they're actually gonna be here.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Anything else, committee? Motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for a long meeting, guys.
Historically,
Jamie?
we never touched